How are we doing there, boys and girls? Mantis here and welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about Venari. Venari has changed her opinion. She's now feeling a lot more generous and will allow you to buy her wares without necessarily needing the reputation on that specific character. Yes, this is really cool. For those of us that have been grinding the rep for Venari on multiple characters for obviously various reasons, this stupidity has now come to an end. If you are, whichever character you have your highest reputation with Venari with will be the one that will, that will be the level of reputation you will have across your entire account. This is really cool. Many people have sort of shouted about this in the last sort of day since this came with the most recent reset. But how does this affect us as goblins? Well, there's one big item that Venari sells that is a really good way to make a little bit of gold, and now you can have access to it without necessarily needing to smash your face through the moor every week on those alts that you might not have, really wanted to do. So if you're on your alt like I am here, my mage is my tailor, and up until this point in the game I just, if you look at my, if we look at the reputation I have with Venari, for the most part she doesn't even know I am. But what we can now do is, assuming that I had enough Stygia available on hand, which I don't, I can grind up 300 Stygia in a matter of minutes. I could buy the Crafter's Mark II recipe for my tailor and start crafting 168 gear. This is really cool. This gives all of us crafters and more markets to play in, right? It gives us more opportunities to make gold with readjusting the cost of crafting some of these gear. Now, let me jump back onto my hunter for a minute, which I already have the Crafter's Mark on, and I'll talk through a few ways in terms of which we can deal with this. For those of you that are happy to know that this is a thing and you know what you're doing going forward, hope you enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe. See you next time. But for everybody else, stick around for a few minutes and we'll talk about a few ways that you can really sort of utilize this Crafter's Mark II to your advantage. Right then, so we're back on the Hunter. The Hunter is my character that's had access to the Crafter's Mark II for quite a while. And we're going to use leatherworking as an example today of how you go about using this Crafter's Mark II, what you're going to craft with it, how profitable some of the items are, and how you can deal with the market as a whole. And more importantly, how much actual gold can you make with this stuff? Well, let's look at firstly what you can craft with it. It's an optional reagent, so you take the end game leveling gear. So in terms of leatherworking, we're talking about the Shadebound set or the Shadow Scale set if you're crafting the mail armor. Now, of course, your tailors have your own variation of this, and blacksmiths also have their own variation. But you can't up the basic real entry level stuff. This stuff you can throw a Crafter's Mark at it, but you can't use the Crafter's Mark II. So we are only looking at the blue, the rare gear for this. Now, a couple of pointers to note about this is the reason the 168 gear is even profitable to craft and sell is for one simple reason. It gives players the ability to jump and skip a whole section of content when they first hit level 60. You ding level 60 at around item level 130, maybe 135, something along those lines. And basically, if you can go to the auction house and relatively affordably buy a set of item level 168 gear, it fundamentally means you can skip that normal mode dungeon grind, that heroic mode dungeon grind, and jump straight into your mythics, or jump straight into LFR, or jump straight into the raid with your guild without feeling too undergeared, for very little cost in most cases. This is quite an affordable thing for people to do. You may go and you may look at the default item level stuff, the 151 item level stuff, and you'll see the prices pretty traditionally being trash. The 151 gear very rarely sells. If it does, it's usually by people actually buying it not to wear it but to disenchant it, but that's another topic for another video. The 168 gear is what most people will seek after, but you've got to remember this is somewhat of a limited market. There's kind of what I would call a glass ceiling to this, okay? your comparative professions, let's look at alchemy or enchanting, for example, you're creating like consumables with those professions. Consumables are something that people will come and they'll buy time and time again. They'll buy some potions, they'll use those potions in their mythic pluses, in their raids, in their battlegrounds, whatever the case may be, and they'll come back to the auction house and they'll buy some more potions, meaning that you can, you know, steadily sell potions day after day, week after week, and still see a relative profit from it. When we talk about gear though, and especially when we talk about leveling gear, the market is considerably smaller. You tend to only be able to sell to somebody maybe once. They hit level 60, they buy a bunch of gear, and then they get bigger and better gear and have no need to ever buy this same stuff again. This does naturally mean that there is a much smaller market for this gear in total. But there is one cool little feature of this that a lot of people don't necessarily realise, and that instead of just crafting helms or just crafting boots, you want to actually craft and list all of it. And for the reason that somebody is quite likely when they first ding level 60 to want to buy an entire set. The entire set is what they're after, because they're ultimately using it to boost their item level, to speed them into newer, more difficult, more lucrative content for them. So if you actually craft and sell every single item that you can, you're likely to actually see big chunks of sales. This is a real cool feature about this. So not only are you making profit by selling one item, you're almost, you're in a position where you've got the opportunity at least to craft 7 or 8. How many different items are there in this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Best case scenario, you sell 8 pieces to one single character. Now, of course, you're crafting all of them and you're making profit on all of them, so it's a nice little way to make gold. I do consider the 168 gear a relatively beginner-friendly, almost entry-level method into crafting and into gold making. If you are already deep into base legendary items, or you've made millions of gold skinning and flipping BOEs already this expansion, this is probably not for you. The rewards that you're going to see from this are not going to be on the level of gold making that you would probably expect them. But if you've got less than 100,000 gold and your character has the ability to pick up this Crafter's Mark II, spend 10k gold picking up some materials, craft some of these items, throw them on the auction house. You'll turn that 10k into 20k very quickly, very easily, which when you're starting out making gold is massive. It's huge. Now, let's talk about some of the quirks that you will come across with this. Everybody's favourite add-on, Trade School Master. Everybody's favourite add-on. People love to use Trade School Master, and those that master Trade School Master become very good at making gold. It's a super, super powerful tool. One thing to note is Trade School Master does some weird, unexpected things with this Crafter's Mark II gear. I would love to tell you that it works fluidly, and the honest answer is it just doesn't. To Trade School Master, I do know for a fact, because I test their alpha versions of their add-ons for them, that they are working on this. They're working on making it better. So if you're watching this video in the future, this problem might have completely gone away. But as it stands currently, if you try and use Trade School Master for crafting, listing, cancel scanning of this 168 gear, you might run into a few issues. To explain it to you simply, so that if you come across this, Trade School Master considers every different variation of the item as a unique item. So for example, I crafted a few shade-bound helms here to give you an indication. I crafted 5 of them. 3 of them came out the same. 3 of them both had crit and haste on them, whilst 1 had haste and mastery and 1 had crit versatility. If you were to use Trade School Master to post these on the auction house and you wanted them to undercut, they would undercut, but they would undercut their exact variation. So it would post your crit haste ones under the other crit haste ones on the auction house. It would post the haste mastery ones under the other haste mastery ones on the auction house, which is not necessarily how a lot of people want it to work. Most people would just like to, you know, craft 5 and post 1 or 2 at a time. Unfortunately, with Trade School Master, this isn't really something that can easily be overcome currently, but they are working on it. If you do this at scale, if you are on a larger server, you may not even notice this be the case. If you craft 10 to 15 of each one of these, you'll likely have one of every different variation, meaning that when you go to the auction house, it will post them all anyway, and you'll still see sales, and then you can recraft when you need to. But be aware that Trade Skill Master doesn't work perfectly fluidly with this at the moment, so don't expect huge, amazing results if you're using Trade Skill Master. This is actually one of the core reasons to why this market has been so lucrative up until this point. Even those people that can craft these 168 item level bits of gear have had difficulty posting it and cancel scanning it and getting those sales on it because they haven't had a powerful tool like Trade Skill Master to help them out. So if you're willing to put in a little bit more time and a little bit more effort to sort of micromanage the auction house with these items, you're likely to sell a lot more and in turn make a lot more. So that's really all I've got to talk about the 168 gear today, boys and girls. I hope you made it to this point in the video. If you did, remember to give the video a like and subscribe if you're new around here. But happy gold making, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.